is perfect. Nice drawings. He's superb. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually waiting for it to turn 9 o'clock. And everything's gotten deathly quiet.
Still 1 minute away.
Sheriff, there's a kind of unusual character over there. You want to keep your eye on, I think.
He made me sit here in the corner.
Let's come to order. It is Monday, May the 17th, 2021. It's 9 o'clock in the morning and the Kerr County Commissioners Court is now in session. We have a brief meeting this morning on the consideration agenda before we go into a workshop, and we'll do the meeting first. And that is, I'm going to call the agenda item of 1.1, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to enter into an agreement with Jill Shackelford for consulting services for the aggregate production operations in the community of Kerr and in community and Kerr County. And I do have a speaker request on that one. Do you want to start, or do you want the speaker to start?
No, let the speaker go.
Ms. Lovett, if you would. Just please.
I go here.
Podium, yes, ma'am.
Here, okay. Excuse me.
And just speak right into that camera and microphone in front of you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Frances Lovett, 6749 Highway 27. That's Precinct 3. And first, I'd like to thank the court for your many years of attention to the surface mining issues we have throughout the county. Your legislative support, resolutions, town halls, and especially your recent workshop. I'd also like to encourage a vote to enlist Ms. Shackelford. I ask for this vote after years of Kerr residents wrangling with TCEQ, spending money on legal actions over neighborhood quarries and their permits. I do not know Ms. Shackelford other than through presentations she made to Texans for Responsible Aggregate Mining, or TRAM. I did have a phone conversation with her prior to your workshop. When TRAM first put her on the group's agenda, I thought, what in the world can this Buddha quarry woman teach Kerr County about aggregates? But, you know, she had answers. She not only knew what she was talking about, but she had answers, including best management practices and advisory committees. I followed that Buddha episode very closely because we were having the same problems over in Centerpoint at that same time. Now, as a long-term quarry observer, I'd like to try to answer a few questions that came up at last week's meeting. First question, why can't we get together, talk, communicate with each other, using the animal shelter and firefighters as a model and just work it out? Answer, my answer is, we can't because the affected parties are different. The mentioned success stories involve local citizens with good intentions. Our APOs, that is the quarries, concrete batch plants, and hot mix asphalt plants, are statewide and international corporations. They have no interest in negotiating with our community. Also, we have tried. A while back, Commissioner Moser asked Martin Marietta to join in setting up an advisory committee. They refused. Another question, why not let the involved parties pay the consultant's fee? It should not become a county expense. Answer, I don't know of any quarry neighbors who could come up with this funding. It isn't realistic to think the APOs would pay to disrupt their status quo. They are satisfied to continue operations as is because they have no laws and little accountability. But going a step further, consider the county an affected or involved person. That is lost tax revenues related to decreased property values and lost river tourism. All county taxpayers are paying for increased road repairs needed because of the APO's heavy truck traffic. Another question. What if it doesn't work after we spend $8,500? Answer. I'd ask you to consider the odds. Her track record's against the high probability of everything getting worse if we continue on our current path. Several years ago, a friend told me, we don't have to worry about mining around Hunt because the quarries can't afford our high property values. I'm not sure that's still true. Now we have an APO in every precinct. Have we appropriately considered the growing industry's effects on air quality, water, road safety and maintenance, our hill country heritage, and tourism? I have learned from Ms. Shackelford, my work with TRAM, and Representative Wilson's interim committee that there are reasonable solutions which are AP owner and neighborhood specific. Today's Kerr situation is evidence that we don't have the expertise to finesse these individual solutions, but maybe she can teach us. As you consider the odds, I'm reminded that Ms. Shackelford's old mine is still prospering alongside their non-complaining Buddha neighbors. I'll spare you a rundown of today's pressing APO conflicts, but I try to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Lovett?
No, but thank you, Francis, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you're certainly welcome to stay and answer any questions if they come up.
Okay, Judge, let's see, you're welcome to stay, Francis. Don't
Are
leave.
y'all gonna budget quarries?
Huh?
Are you putting out a budget for quarries? Oh, vote. Y'all-
Yeah.
I'm
Stand
sorry.
by, Francis.
We're not done with our
Thank you.
discussion.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
first of all, I'd like to recognize Francis. She and Shanna Colgate, two ladies in the eastern part of the county, are probably know more about quarries and operations and restrictions and guidelines and regulations than anybody in the county. I think she is mine and Commissioner Letz's go-to person when it comes to what about this, what about this, what about that. Francis really works at it, and thank you again, Francis, for doing it. Jill Shackelford came in to a workshop a couple of weeks ago and presented what she would do and presented her experience in is the background for doing something for Kerr County. And it was recommended that we delineate in more detail what her task would be, and so in the proposed consulting agreement that you have in front of you, with Jill Shackelford, and with Heather's review, these two have delineated what she would accomplish. But it's basically is that she would contact each one of the quarry operators, APOs, aggregate production operators, and discuss with them what their processes are, what their procedures are, and what they might do to better improve their operations in the eyes of the neighbors. This would be step one. Step two, she would have a meeting with some of the individual neighbors. Then she would come back to a workshop with the Commissioner's Court and present her findings and recommendations. The next step would be, once that is laid on the table, then to help the county, if we so choose, be a separate action to form a community alliance committee, which would be made up of approximately 10 people, that's to be determined, but made up of the aggregate production operators, representatives from the Commissioners Court, and the community. And with that, then that would be a forum by with which to communicate on a regular basis, perhaps every quarter, or when issues occur between the aggregate production operators and the community. So that's basically it. You have in front of you the proposed changes with delineation of what her duties would be. She is ready to begin operations, and I might add the only change made to the consulting agreement that you had a week or so ago was the delineation of the scope of work. Everything else is the same, and I think county attorney has reviewed this and is okay with the changes that are proposed.
Commissioner, question.
Sure.
On the 1.1 services, the last paragraph, it says consultant will provide detailed plan to establish community advisory council.
Mhm.
Does that include her attending the first meeting if we choose to do
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Can we say that? Can we add that? Because I think that's a very important point, because I think she could explain one time how that would happen.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. No, she would be there for the first one, right?
And after that, no,
Right.
that would be additional.
Okay.
The
Right.
other item, under reimbursements, could we put a cap on that?
Sure.
Additional, I mean,
I think it says that, but we can delineate that further.
it just says, I don't see a dollar amount. It's travel, phone calls, but, postal and all that. It shouldn't be much, but she mentions hotel, temporary housing, meals, other items in there that could be expensive.
Okay, sure.
And I don't know what a
So,
reasonable cap would be.
Not to exceed,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed 8,500.
Well, not-
Okay.
No, this is
This
expensive.
is in addition to the 8,500. is that
Oh,
what it is?
okay.
And usual wording would be not to exceed a certain amount, subject to written approval. of
Well, I
court.
think what this says is, this is the contract or agreement with $8,500. Anything we choose to do beyond that would have to be court action.
Right. But this,
So I don't know how to cap it. It'd be what we chose, would ask her to
well,
do.
we can come back to it. But I mean, the way I read it, there's $8,500 for all of her, basically her labor, but her out-of-pocket expenses is phone calls, travel, mileage, is in addition to that 8,500.
No, that's not correct. It's included in the 8,500. 2 trips here at least, okay, are included in that.
I think it needs to be clear because I read it the other way.
Okay.
Why would it be stated, you're talking about 3.2, why would it be stated separately?
3.1.
3.2 is reimbursement.
Yeah, but if you look down to, it's the third-party vendor expenses that we're talking about.
Well, I'm looking at 3.2 and, I mean, if it's all included, why do we need the reimbursement?
Exactly. So it cannot be.
I don't think that the reimbursements are included in the $8,500. I think it's in addition to, as are the third-party expenses. And I don't know what third-party expenses would be. That was a question I had for it, but I don't know what those would be. But I also think it's in addition to.
Third-party expenses, as long as they're approved by, they need to be approved by the court.
Okay. Third party agrees.
By a court, and I understand if there's, but I think there ought to be a cap of, I don't know, $500. I mean, it's not that far from here to Austin. And paper copies and phone calls and all
Well,
that.
in the 8,500, her travel is included in the 8,500. If we choose to have her go beyond that, then that's court action to approve that for her for $250 an hour.
That's great, but I think it needs to be clear.
The 8,500 includes 2 trips to Kerr County the way I read it.
Right,
That's it. So any of the rest of this is on top of that.
right.
Which is copies, phone calls, which shouldn't be much, but I mean,
Do you
still.
want to put a number in there? And then beyond that needs to be approved by the Commissioners Court?
Yeah.
What number?
$250.
Fine, $250. Right. I don't envision anything beyond it.
I'll put $250 in there unless otherwise approved by the Commissioners Court.
Okay. Good changes.
That was it. Other than that, I think it's good. I mean, it does exactly what I was looking for, is to specific.
Okay, well, with that, then I'll make a motion that we approve the consulting agreement with Jill Shackelford as provided and as changes made and recommended by the court, and have county attorney incorporate those changes.
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the proposed contract with Jill Shackelford as revised this morning, as presented. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there any discussion?
Yes. I don't see any guarantee that the operators will come to the table.
Well, there's probably not a guarantee,
Right.
okay? But
And
there's
another
not a
thing-
guarantee that they won't keep, doing what they
I
want to do.
understand. Another thing is the precedence that it sets. You know, we have landowners in conflict with everything from river crossings to condominiums going in and everything else. This could be the first domino on this. We do this, why don't you do this for us down the road? Issues with conflicts. And that bothers me. I grew up next to a quarry, and I can remember the blasting. The whole house would shake, dust, and everything else. So I'm sympathetic to all the issues, but I don't see this as we don't have oversight on this, and so I don't see it needs to be a county expense.
I agree with that.
Let me comment. We do have oversight, we have an agreement. Okay? The thing is that we don't have are the following. We don't have very, very many state laws that restrict quarry operators, number one. We've got a potential for more occurring in the county. I know of probably one or two other in sites where there'd be quarries. There's probably more than that. Case in point, Francis mentioned the value of the land being too expensive. An example, I won't say exactly which quarry it was, make it that way so it's not obvious. Paid $5 million for the property. There's a potential of $200 million worth of aggregate. So the price of the property is nothing, okay, whether it's in
Sure.
West Kerr County or East Kerr County. There will be additional things. I believe the primary operators that we have right now of West Texas Aggregate, Martin Marietta, and Wheatcraft, I've talked to each one of them, meet with each one of the three of them. I think they would participate in these things. Can't guarantee it, no, because they're going to do what they want to do because they've got the authority to do on their property what they want to. So I don't see this as a slippery slope. I do see it as a step forward in facilitating a working agreement and working operations and maintain the quality of life that we have, a step in that direction to help assure it, okay? Will it do it? No. Will state laws be changed to ensure it? Probably not, okay? Probably not, because the lobbyists in the industry is very strong on it. So it's a matter of these people wanting to be good neighbors, and this is just a mechanism with which to do that. And I think, as Francis Lovett said, Jill Shackelford it's not a proposal, a concept or anything. She's proven that she can do it. So I think it would be can guarantee it? No, you can't guarantee it. But I think it'd be a really high probability that it'll be very successful. So
I'll make a comment that I agree that the precedent's a little bit odd on this. But, a lot of time and resources have been spent already on quarries of county, elected officials' time. While we didn't participate, I don't believe with the fees. I know the city had quite a bit of legal fees when Mark Marietta was coming in. So if this is a mechanism that helps mitigate future costs, it'd be good. It's worthwhile. It's a lot of money, but it's not an unreasonable amount of money in my mind to try to get this done. And I think that likely to get more and more quarries, and having some sort of mechanism in place, I think it's a good idea. I know, I mean, pretty much from Kerrville to the east is the most likely area for quarries, but in the western part of the county, I would not be surprised if one comes up out there as well, because there are areas where the river, basically it appears to me, I'm not a geologist when it comes to all this, but that where the river gets wide, there's gravel, and where it's narrow, there's not. So north of Hunt, no, I don't see a quarry, but between, around the Ingram area, I can see something between Ingram and Hunt. There's some pretty wide areas of that river of the same look that we have in the eastern part of the county. So I think it's worth trying to do it, and I think it's a benefit to really to all the taxpayers to try to solve this problem.
Ms. Levin?
Well, I'd like for you to consider also that this approach is an advantage to the quarries. I think they'll listen. We've had an air quality permit for Martin Marietta tied up for well over 2 years to increase their emissions. We have wrangled with Wheatcraft forever over their water rights. And I can't believe that these slowdowns with the quarry processes are financially good for the quarries. And the second thing, one other thing I would just like to say is that we are fooling ourselves if we think that all the expansion going on in Kerr County, that is the new commercial projects, the city's 2050 plan, and our new housing projects are going to bring aggregates in from out of the county. They're not. They're going to expand their operations here in the county close to the workplace because it's very expensive for them to haul aggregates in from San Antonio or distant places. So I think that is a real risk for us, and I think that any progress we could make with our current problems, that is Martin Marietta, Wheatcraft, and APO, would set a precedent for future expansions.
Thank you, Ms. Levin.
Thanks, Francis.
Would you have something?
Yes, two things were said that I think are important for the county. One is diminished property taxes because of the valuations of properties, and the other is the wear and tear on our roads. That's the only return on investment we would possibly get out of this, and I don't think that it's a proper use of county funds to enter into a quibble between private citizens and private companies. It's as simple as that. I do see that the county there's an upside for us that but it's not, this won't change that. It won't stop anything.
Right.
That return on investment will be money down the rat hole, because unless the legislature does something different, we're not going to change the wear and tear on the roads or the devaluation of properties.
That's where it has
in
to
this
go.
county. And TCEQ, I sympathize. They're unresponsive in the times I've dealt with them. So, but this is not the proper use of county funds. It's a private issue on both sides.
The only comment I would make is I just returned from a Texas Association of Counties conference with over 100 other judges, and had the opportunity to visit with a lot of judges that do have aggregate operations, both in neighboring counties as well as on other river basins. And the one thing that I learned that I didn't know before I went to my conference, which was on probate, not on anything else, but it's on probate, is Jill Shackelford is very well known in the industry and respected. And that goes a long way when you're trying to have a meaningful conversation. A number of the judges had worked with Jill Shackelford before and had nothing but good things to say about it. So I'm not telling you that they said do it or don't do it. I'm just telling you that I asked around and I got a good report card. And as for my personal beliefs, I think everybody knows that I'm a recovering lawyer. And I spent over 30 years as a mediator for the American Arbitration Association and others. And more times than not, if you can get people together and give them a chance to discuss their differences, reasonable minds don't differ that often. They really don't. I think we all understand the limitations that the county or the individual homeowners have with regard to aggregate operations. And if we're looking to the legislature to help us, we're looking in the wrong direction. It will not happen. That lobby in Austin is too rich. Austin has been purchased by the lobbyist, and we are low on the totem pole, trust me. But in terms of an advisory council, whether we use Jill Shackelford or not, I think going forward and trying to put together some sort of citizen and operator group to be able to sit down, break bread, discuss their differences, and see if they can't come up with some kind of way to accommodate one another reasonably. And so when you talk about, and one of the discussions I had with them, all the people that I talked to that had knowledge or experience with Jill Shackelford said that the way she approaches the BMPs, these best management practices, and she talked about the BMPs. She is held in high regard statewide in being able to advocate reasonable BMPs. Now, I don't know how to address the precedent on this thing. I know that we have a problem in East Kerr County, and the other thing I know is that is where most of our new development is going. And if we don't get ahead and get out in front of the development before it gets here, then the development's going to be driving the bus. And the developers are the ones that will be the purchasers of this product. And so they will have a big say. And I think that whether we go back to the Teddy Roosevelt bully pulpit or whatever, the county has a role to sit at the table and facilitate these discussions. And that's what I want to promote. And if Jill Shackelford is the best way to do that, I'm in favor of that. That's all I've got. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor of retaining Jill Shackelford on the basis of the consulting agreement as presented in today's courtroom, raise your hand. Those opposed? And I respect your differences.
Okay.
Motion passes 3-2. Thank you, Ms. Levitt.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't believe we have anything else for the Commissioners Court meeting, so we will adjourn the Commissioners Court meeting. And if you're ready, we will convene the workshop. Again, it is Monday, May the 17th. It's now about almost 9:30 in the morning, and we have a county workshop to participate and discuss employee benefits, including but not limited to retiree supplemental health insurance. Now, as I read these off, these are the only things we can talk about, folks. Retiree supplemental health insurance, longevity pay, merit policy, vacation or paid time off leave, county retirement contribution, and certification policy. And I see we have a number of employees in the courtroom, and you're certainly welcome. So with that, let's go ahead. I think probably ought to start with Commissioner Lett, since he's our liaison commissioner for HR, and this came through the Human Resources. So I'll let them start the meeting, and then we'll include everybody's concerns afterwards. So.
First, I mean, it was very interesting and very educational to go through the exercise that Tanya, Jennifer, Heather, and myself went through for the last month. And there was a lot of things that I think all of us thought we needed to do. And after we spent, I don't know, probably in meetings alone, at least 6 hours, probably closer to 8 hours in an actual meeting, and going over and understanding and figuring out what we have right now in our benefit policy and where we need to look at making some changes and misconceptions and all that. But it was very interesting. I think that you've handed out to the members of the court, there's 3 things. One says overview, which is kind of the outline of what we're going to kind of go through. And then there's 2 other handouts. One is with yellow stripes on it. That's a very complicated, but it's backed up, and that's Tanya's spreadsheet. It kind of goes along with the longevity policy, so we'll probably put that on hold just for a little bit. And the other thing handed out was our salary survey, which we've looked at before, but it was very important in looking at some of the recommendations we're making. I think it's going to be easiest, so we can get through it in some order. Just let me kind of go through the overview sheet, all of them, kind of a summary thing, and then come back one by one and explain, because otherwise we're going to be jumping back and forth a whole lot. And I think it'll kind of get through it, then people, and certainly Jennifer and Tanya will be the ones to answer the detailed questions, because I get real confused real quick on some of these things. First thing was the retirement supplement insurance. The reason this was looked at is that we have an $8 million, plus or minus $8 million liability on our books right now, covering that retirement insurance overall. There's two parts to that. One is a retirement supplement insurance, which is basically, it's, as I understand it, correct me, Jennifer, if I get these wrong. The retirees can be, we offer, first, before, if they retire at 60, we pay their insurance, or a portion of their insurance, if they choose, for the retirees, to 65. At 65, they go on Medicare. And then at that point, our insurance becomes a secondary insurance, or supplement insurance. We're not recommending making any change at this point in the contribution we're making for the retirees' insurance from 60 to 65. That gets adjusted slightly historically when we get our insurance rates. We might make a slight adjustment, but it's not a major change. It's pretty much leaving it the way it is. The supplement insurance is, we pay a portion of it and the retirees pay a portion of it. And our current plan is a Cadillac plan. It's very expensive to us and to the employees. And employees can go out on the open market and buy it at about a quarter of the price, a third of the price of what we're currently charging. It doesn't make sense to continue that. The recommendation is that we look at that during our insurance, when we come do that through the budget process, and reduce that or eliminate that portion of the plan. Probably would keep something in case the retiree wants to use it, but it is beneficial for the employees to go out in the open market and find their own plan.
So the retirees may have an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We may cancel it totally, or we may reduce it. It'll depend on, once we get the quotes and look at some of the other options.
Okay.
So that's one that, definitely I think we're recommending that there's a change in the supplement insurance for retirees. But we don't know the exact amount of that until we get our insurance quotes back to that part of that package. Second, longevity. For years, I have thought that we needed to modify our longevity policy. I thought that it was basically a little too generous. What is interesting is, after looking at the salary study and some other numbers, our current plan is not costing us a whole lot of money unnecessarily, for two reasons, or one reason, and then one anecdote. The reason is our average employee only stays 8.9 years. Most of them don't benefit a whole lot from our longevity policy. So basically they only get their 1 year bump and a 4 year bump, and then they're gone. So that's the majority of the employees. Really, it's not an impact to us.
By majority, you mean 51%?
Yeah, 51%. The other thing is, if we didn't have our policy, our salary survey would not have come out, or study would not have come out the way it did, is that we're paying about where I think we should be paying. We're slightly above market. And the only reason we're at slightly above market is because our longevity policy keeps pushing people up every 3 years after your first year. We looked at this, if we eliminated the 1 year only and kept the rest of it in place, financial impact just wasn't that big. And a lot of the people, supervisors and elected officials, say that's a big selling point to our employees, that they get a quick bump. So it just didn't seem really it was worth messing with the policy as it is. So the recommendation is to leave it the way it is.
Yeah.
Number 3 is a new longevity policy. Well, let me go back to the longevity. We also figured in talking about it, it's really not a longevity policy. It's more, and we never could come up with what it is. It's not really a merit policy. It's kind of a merit policy because you stay long enough, you're probably doing a decent job. It's kind of almost a salary adjustment policy, a long-term salary adjustment policy is really what it is. It's paid longevity-wise, but it's not a longevity policy that the way other counties, any other county that we could find, doesn't. All other counties, and this is if we want to look at a true longevity policy, most longevity policies, or all the ones we can look at, or what number 3 is that, and what we did, basically after a period of time, you get paid based on your months of service, a flat rate, and a check is cut. Doesn't go into your paycheck, it goes into a check is cut in December, but most of them do. Some of them roll it in, but we looked at, you get a check in December based on your previous year. There's an example here that we did. We picked $5 a month, a little bit random. That's kind of in the market of what most counties and cities around seem to be doing, though that does fluctuate quite a bit. But if an employee was hired, just an example, on 2/10/17, their first full month would be March. So they get 7 months of service through the end of the fiscal year. They'd get a check of $275 on December 21. And then it goes out, it's calculated and sent there. We're looking at that a little bit more as to what the actual impact to the county would be. It's a true longevity policy, but it's a different way of doing it. And it's just something to be considered. It's listed as a possible policy for us to think about it. And probably we're going to look at, the next step would be to run various scenarios as to exactly what the impact of the county would be annually. The other thing is, when do you start it? We've talked a little bit about, do you just start it kind of now going forward, or how far back do you go, and when do you pay it, and how often? So there's some more discussion on that, but it is something that we think should be looked at. Number 4.
Do other counties have such a policy that you know of?
Well, the city of Kerrville does, Kimball County does.
Okay.
I think a lot of counties that have longevity policies, this is how they do it.
Okay.
And it varies a lot. Some of them pay it on your annual length of service. Some of it's monthly. It appeared that monthly is the most common and seemed to work the best.
Okay.
And this wouldn't replace, Commissioner, our current policy?
No,
Is
this
that
is in
correct?
addition. This would be a new policy. Now, it could be on budget. It could be an adjustment between the two possibly. It'll be a court decision. But the purpose today is really to present a lot of information and then let people or members of the court think about it, let the elected officials, department head employees feedback also. And I would encourage everyone on the court to visit with Jennifer and Tanya one-on-one on questions on this stuff, because it gets complicated as to why we're doing some of this and what the liabilities are and some of that. And, we can certainly answer any questions today, but it gets rather
Well,
detailed.
if it was started today, do we have any idea what it would cost this next fiscal year?
Tanya ran some numbers. You read the longevity?
Well, we have both. It looks like in the range of $100,000 a year.
An expense we don't have now.
Right.
Now, that's the number 2 longevity policy.
What was it? Oh, you didn't run the new
Yeah,
one?
We didn't run the numbers for because we didn't know if it was 5, 10. We talked about different amounts of things.
Okay.
So it'll depend on the number of employees and the amount settled on.
It'll be the monthly amount, and if you pay it at the same, 4-year, how often you do it. If you do it every 5 years, it can be based on, you get it just depends how that policy would work. And we need to come up with several different examples.
So is this a yearly longevity?
Yes, you get paid every
Bump
year.
they'll get, okay, that's what I thought, okay.
Based on the number.
It's just to encourage people to stay employed here.
Right.
Right, okay, gotcha.
And remember, our average employee stays 8.9 years. And that's a very important number in looking up a lot of our policies. And also the thing would be, when do you cap it at some point?
Mhm.
So, and there's a lot of things that go into it, but it's something to think about if we wanted to implement it.
Okay.
It definitely has a budget impact.
And there are savings realized by taking on a new employee.
And
When an
for
8-year employee
Right.
leaves or a 9-year employee leaves, there's a savings realized when somebody replaces them.
And
There's a
co-
savings and there's a cost.
Right, there's a
Yeah.
cost.
and there's where that breaking point is.
Right.
That's the.
Depends on the employee.
And, right. So, I mean, but, number 4 is vacation, paid time off. Our current policy, you get 80 hours of vacation per year, this is up to 10 years, and 80 hours sick time per year, and you can accrue up to 720 hours, but however, that is not payable upon leaving. I didn't say it, but on the vacation policy, you can accrue up to 160 hours, I think, and that is payable. Proposed to change it to paid time off, which basically means there's no difference between vacation and sick time. You get 160 hours per year, same as we have right now. At 10 years, you'd go up to 200, and then at over 20 years, you get 240 hours with a cap of 320. That should be a cap of 240. So you don't get any more increase after that. You can accrue up to 320 hours from year to year, and 160 hours of that would be payable upon leaving employment. And then each year's employees can move excess hours over the 320 to an additional FMLA hours with a limit of 720 hours. And then none of that in the FMLA is payable upon leaving employment. The reason for that is kind of I've talked with a lot of the employees, is that some employees like to bank sick time, which is currently up to 720 hours, so that if they do have a major illness come up, they get paid through that major illness, and that makes sense. They're kind of banking it, and so this is kind of allowing for that. FMLA is probably a lot easier to get than I thought. You can get it, basically the main criteria is to get a note from the doctor. It can be a recurring time event, like if you have a cancer and you need to go for treatments, it could be cover all that time. It could, the bad case of the flu, it can cover that. So it's not necessarily months of being
Well, that
gone.
covers sick children and everything.
Well, that's just your sick time. Well, FMLA can cover that too, yeah. So FMLA is probably not used as much as it could be used. So putting that money up, that time banking it over in the FMLA is basically the same thing as that what a lot of employees are doing, banking it right now. So they're really, is a minimal, if any, cost impact of doing this to the county. It also does something else, is that it allows employees that don't use a lot of sick time. It right now you get 80 hours of vacation until you get 10 years. That's it's not a real generous vacation policy that we have right now at the county. Most businesses have it more of a 5-year increment. You get a week. So at 5 years, you get another 40 hours, and 10, then another 40, up to a maximum, most 6 weeks. This would help address that also, in my mind. Employees that are not sick a whole lot, they're getting a little bit more vacation time.
So you're saying lumping together just PTO,
Yeah.
Right.
paid time off. Doesn't matter what you take it for.
Sure.
Right.
And it shouldn't matter what you
Right.
take it for.
And it also, one of the benefits is that I heard from one of our supervisors was that it takes the supervisors, elected officials, out of the mix of, are you really sick right now? Or questioning, are you sick? Why are you sick every Friday? It gets them out of that type of an issue and makes it say, hey, it's time off. So I think there's probably a plus to that.
You ever coming, you ever coming.
Next page, number 5, is the retirement contribution. Currently, the county matches 2.3 to 1, or 230%. So, for every dollar the employee puts in their retirement, the county matches $2.30. This is another area where we have a liability that is growing. Right now, it's about $4 million. There may be a recommendation to change this some, but we really didn't have time to ask TCDRS to run several scenarios to us and to really what's causing this. So the recommendation is to ask TCDRS to look at our plan and say, is there a way that we can reduce our liability from keep on growing going forward? And that's kind of where it is. But we just don't have the information needed right now. At first, the thought was maybe to lower it a little bit. And if it was lowered, it would not, anything that's in this plan would continue. It's not going to change anything as you've already contributed, but it would just lower it going forward. But it's not a recommendation this time because we don't know if that's really what that does on the liability.
Now, you're talking about lowering the match or the percentage?
The county match. We are very high. 2.3 is very high. Most counties are either at 2 or 2.1. Some are at 1.9.
There are some that are 2.5 though.
Yeah, there are some. Harris County is 2.5, and there's some others. Gillespie's 2.35, I think. So, but we just need to look at that because the liability is a concern moving forward because it grows, and we just need to figure out: are we comfortable with that, or do we need to look at that? And that's a TCDRS question.
Just need more analysis.
Yeah, it needs more analysis
Okay.
on that. Certification policy. Currently, we have a whole lot of different certifications for different departments where they get different certifications. This started with the sheriff's department and it's slowly grown. Our recommendation is to eliminate them all and then change the job descriptions. And as an example, and the terminology won't be right, but in the sheriff's department, say you have a deputy gets hired, doesn't have any certifications, he's where he is, he gets whatever the next step is, his job classification jumps up.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a deputy 1, deputy class 1, or deputy class 2, whatever. You change the job descriptions and incorporate certifications into the job description. So we don't get rid of all these certifications because it's not fair right now. Some departments get it, some don't, and it's kind of grown over the years.
Good idea.
And then the other thing, which isn't on here, but I think we've talked about, we need to really come up with finally exempt employees' salary ranges. It's critical that we come up with that. So that's kind of, where we are. And then questions beyond that. I will say, and Tanya, you might want to explain this sheet. This is the yellow sheet.
The yellow sheet is where we just took and said, here's our current policy of what we're paying today, and this is real basic because we couldn't take everybody, so we looked at a salary of $30,000, $60,000, and $90,000. And under our current policy, for instance, the longevity awarded is about 1.65% after 3 years. So we just kind of took what it was and looked at the different pay ranges to say about what that amounts to. If you're here 20 years, your salary will increase about 9.32%. And that's everybody, no matter which pay range you're at, it's going to increase by that same percentage. We looked at this comparing it to if we did a fixed longevity of $1,500, the same way we're doing now, except it would just be $1,500, not up to the 2.5% increase that everyone receives right now.
The reason $1,500, do my math right, that's at a $60,000 employee, that's 2.5%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It wasn't just a random number, it was kind of tied to the current policy.
Thank you. It seemed kind of random when he told me, just because he said 1,500. So anyway, but the thing about it is, again, if you look at those same 30, 60, and 90 salary ranges for the first 3 years, there would not be any because we talked about. He asked to not include the 1,500 as part of that for that first month that everyone receives after 1 year. But if you start looking down, the first time you would get it would be at 6 years or at 7 years, I think, or 4 years. Let me back up. So at 6 years, what you would be receiving at that time, if you're making $30,000, it'd be a 2.38% increase. If you're making $60,000, it's a 1.2% increase. and if you're making 90,000, it's a 0.81% increase. You take that on down to somebody that works 20 years, and it jumps from the 30,000 at a fixed rate, you would have received an 11.46% increase in your salary over those 20 years. If you're making 60,000, that increase would have been a 6.8% increase. And if you're making 90,000, that increase was 4.14%. So moving it from a percentage to a fixed amount, it made a big difference in just looking at what that would mean to the individual employees.
Okay. Any discussion? Questions? This is a workshop. We're not making any decisions today. So, I ask the court first, any questions or discussion? Are we okay? Ready to start listening to employees?
Yes.
Okay. Jackie, you got your hand up first? Let's do it all from the podium. I think it's going to be easier for everybody to hear.
Before Jackie does it, has the employees had a chance to look at this?
No.
Well,
Okay.
I just had a question on merit policy.
Okay, never mind.
Was there going to be discussion on merit policy, or was there something else that you had said that was intended to cover that? Like a different
I
name?
guess we discussed under other,
No, merit policy on the agenda.
But it's including, not limited to, and including those items on the agenda. So,
But thus far, my understanding is we've talked about merit in the context of longevity.
Okay, that was.
And whether or not we're going to stick with percentages for longevity, or we're going to try to do something that's going to be more of a flat rate style, which will probably drift more towards merit. I think that's what you were trying to say. That's what I heard.
right.
That's what I got out of it.
Now, yeah, the current policy doesn't seem to work. And I'll have an agenda item on what to do with some money we have there coming up. But, yeah, so the recommendation would be down the road is going to be to probably eliminate our current policy as it addresses the merit.
But to keep the merit concept is extremely important, and I agree with that. Now, as far as our merit policy, and I'll confess that as a court, we haven't done particularly good with it. But putting that aside, I think what I'm hearing, the recommendation coming back from HR and our liaison, is they're looking to try to take the merit concepts and the longevity concepts and come up with a hybrid to address it all at one time. That's pretty much, I think, what I've been hearing.
That's right.
Now, I haven't said it in the meetings, I just hear bits and pieces of it, but I think that's the basic approach.
Jonathan said it well the other day, is that it would be included as part of the salary plan in keeping the longevity policy that we have now and renaming it sort of as the salary plan, and then adding later a possibility of that other additional longevity.
Okay.
Well, I'll offer one comment. I want to make sure that our employees are taken care of. But at the same time, we have to have a realistic, viable plan to do it. I'm not only a recovering attorney, I'm a recovering economics major, but as I looked at our longevity system when I first came in, it kind of boggled my mind because it's so disproportionate in the way that its impact is. Whether we keep doing the first year or not, I mean, and we're bringing in a whole bunch of exempt employees right now. And if y'all want to know what triggered all of this, we got 21 lawyers on the payroll, and nobody agrees about anything. Okay, and I don't mean that disparagingly. I just mean we have got a handful to try to deal with that, and you know, they're lawyers, and you know how lawyers can be, right? But when I say the unfairness of the way the longevity works is it's weighted towards the high-end employees. The employees that make $100,000 or more, at the end of the first year, you get a 2.5% raise. 3 years, you get another 2.5%, and this continues ad infinitum. And then every year, that increase is whatever COLA or wage adjustment we come up with is now based upon a bigger number. And it looks like the people at the top get a whole lot more proportionately than the people that are trying to come up. The people from the 30 to the $60,000, $75,000 range are not being treated the same way that the high-end employees are being treated. That's what concerns me. I'm not saying that all our high-end people don't deserve what they're getting. But I am telling you that some of the low-end people, I think, deserve to be compensated a little bit better in relationship to the total payroll. And so I think that's what this was an attempt to address, right?
Right.
Is this a perfect piece of work? No. Are we there yet? Probably not. But this is a discussion, it's a painful discussion that we need to have with ourselves. We're a family. And when we're looking at the family finances here, we need to sit down and make sure that we're treating everybody fairly. And that we are proud of the benefits that we have for our employees. We didn't know whether to be proud or ashamed until we did the salary study, and we were pleasantly surprised that our longevity plan, our longevity policy, kept us in the game. And we're actually a little bit above market. So I look at that and I think, well, this longevity policy is working to an extent. But is it working equally? Is it working fairly for everybody? That's the real question that I have.
My biggest concern was these people here and the people they represent, we're not moving the goalpost on them, and I don't think this really does. The only thing I would say is number 5, the retirement contribution. When we look at it again down the road, I don't want to change it on anybody. You might want to grandfather them and start with new employees or something different, but we need to protect these because, I don't want, we got a carrot out here and I don't want to take that carrot away we've been dangling. I mean, we have really good benefit packages and everything else. And as we saw from the survey we had, we pay extremely well compared to other counties. So, I think it's a good start. Hats off to y'all that did a lot of heavy lifting on this.
Yeah. I think the on the contribution, whatever the number it is, about the contribution,
Yes.
retirement contribution.
Yeah.
That's why we really delayed this piece. We have a liability, from a budget standpoint, we have to address it. That's a given. How we address it is what we don't know, and that's why we really need the guidance of TCBRS, or who manages our retirement system, to tell us, okay, you can do A, B, and C, and they all will get to where we need to be. And that's why we just said we need to look at it, but we just don't have enough information to know how we reduce the liability or keep it from growing. And maybe the other answer would be is that maybe it's fine for us to have that liability sitting out there, but we just need more information from that expert to go over that liability, because it was a concern on our folks.
Very briefly,
No, I get to have fun with this. Let's go to the podium, and we're going to hear from our civilian Mr. Kerr.
The has-been.
Sheriff, go ahead.
I would address a few of the points that Jonathan had mentioned. And one is on the over 65 medical supplement. I agree with Jonathan wholeheartedly. Okay. I know other county employees that retired, and once they hit 65, they got totally off the county supplement because you can get it a lot cheaper elsewhere. Okay, and it's not just the county. My wife's a retired teacher. When she hit 65, we got off the state, the teacher supplement because we could get it a whole lot cheaper elsewhere. My intention are once I hit 65, I'm going to get off of it. So I think if the employees, I understand, I'd asked some open records requests, and I think there's about 14 or so that are on that supplement right now. And I think if they look, they could probably find it cheaper, real easily around here. That's not that big a benefit.
Well, just a supplement, Sheriff.
Yes.
I am over 65. Didn't y'all know that? But I was on a supplement before I came to work for the county. And mine was with USAA, and it was significantly cheaper than what you're paying for the supplement here.
Well, my wife's is with Mutual of Omaha here locally, and it's a whole lot cheaper.
Anecdotally, I can just tell you the numbers. The county's paying a lot more for my supplement insurance than I was paying before.
Right. Now, on the regular health insurance, the 60 to 65, I did find one thing that I did not know or was going to occur. You know, part of all the employees' health insurance through Blue Cross Blue Shield, you also have dental. That's included in your health insurance, okay? My card, my Blue Cross Blue Shield card still shows I have dental because my card was issued prior to my retiring, but it's the same card, and that's the one I have. But I don't have dental. As a retiree, the dental is already cut out of our health insurance. So we don't have dental, retirees don't, okay? That's one thing we lost. That I didn't know I lost until I got my full dental bill. But and I got my notice from Blue Cross saying I didn't have dental. Okay? So I can understand. I think that needs to be looked at because it's still on our card. It shows on my Blue Cross card that I have dental, but I don't have it. The deal on the longevity, that's going to be a hard one for y'all to tackle because when we went to the current policy, you know, there was reasons for that 2.5%. It gave one step is what it amounted to. But I agree that if the employee is on the higher end salary automatically, he's getting a lot bigger raise for just longevity than the employee that's been here just as long, just as dedicated, but his position doesn't pay as much. So I think that does need to be looked at to equal it out. You know, the monthly deal puts them all even, regardless of what the salary is. I think that was a good idea. You know, if you come up with something on that, and then if you can use other longevity, the current one has more fall into the merit type deal, where you still keep it, but it's a merit because if that employee's been here that long, drop that first year, but if they've been here after that, normally they're a pretty good employee. And keep that as your merit and go with the monthly as your longevity. I think that would even it out for all employees. I've always said, and I know the hospital does it on the sick leave, that we probably should go to just a paid leave. Because as one of y'all mentioned, it is extremely hard for the supervisors to have to govern and say, well, were they really sick? This guy gets sick every single Friday, you know. And then I know we even over the years had some lawsuits saying you didn't have the right to ask. Mm-hmm. Okay, but yet we were supposed to keep them from not abusing their sick leave. So I think that might be a good idea. But the contribution that the county makes on retirement, I think, is extremely important. I don't know what your liability is or how that works, but when you said, Jonathan, most employees' average stay is 8.5 years or 8 years, 9 months, most of those never see it, okay? Because they leave before they get retirement. And if you leave before, you don't get that county match when they pull it, unless they left it in there after they were vested. They don't see that 230. They only get back when they withdraw their retirement. They only get back what they put in. Now, true, the county doesn't get reimbursed for that 230 that they had put in, but it should offset some of that liability portion is what it does. So how many retirees do you actually have collecting retirement right now, Jennifer? Do you know? I know medical-wise it was 15, but I don't know how many actual retirees. There was 15 retirees and 14 supplements. So, you know, you're still probably talking less than 30. I don't know, okay? But out of 300 employees and the changeover, you know, that you're looking at, I don't see it as being a liability that you would ever have an issue with, okay, because of that. Because if they stay, you know, our retirement's already based off, you know, your longevity, life expectancy, all that kind of stuff on how it's going to work out. And since most employees are never going to really see that 230, I think it's a benefit to those employees that stick it out and stay and make Kerr County their career. And I think that is a benefit to this county that you don't ever want to give up. Because the longer you have good employees that can answer questions, do things, they know how it's done, the better off you are. Unless they're old retired sheriffs that should have left long time ago. But, you know, I would strongly encourage keeping that, because that, in my hiring practice, when I was hiring employees out there, that was a big part of it. That, you know, for every dollar you put in your retirement system, the county's gonna put $2.30 in there for you. That's major for the employee and for long term and for a good retirement. It's not Houston, it's not the 250, you know, it's not the 235 Fredericksburg, you know, it's better than the city of Kerrville, but they beat us on salary. And that's how we handle that. They beat us on salary, we beat them on benefits. And that's where it really matters. My 2 cents.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome back.
Short lived, it won't be long.
I think that's the first time I've ever called you Mr. Hero.
Well,
You called me a lot of things, Judge.
He started the same way though, very briefly.
Yeah.
I know everybody probably is reticent out there to get up and talk to us, but we're here to listen. You know, part of our job is to listen, and you've watched us be faithful and transparent in listening to the citizens in our community. You've seen them lined up in the hall, waiting in the courtroom upstairs to come down and talk to us, and we listen to them. You're our family. Come talk to us.
Oh, I'm not scared.
I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Sheriff Hillholzer, or ex-Sheriff Hillholzer said. Our retirement is very important to the employees here at Kerr County. I did some figures myself. I went back and I looked from where we were to where we're at now. In 2007, we had 1.9 contribution towards the county paid towards the employees. You know, it took a lot to get from there to here. And so by those employees that have been here that long, a lot of them can retire. What does that mean? It means they're going to start pulling their money. So the more that pulls their money, the lower that percentage comes down. The higher your percentage goes up, the higher your liability is. So when you look at this, I want you to make sure you look at that as well, because right now we're at a good funding rate. At least last time I was in HR, our funding rate was good. So again, a lot of people leave, they take their money, which means the county contribution stays there, which is a benefit to those that do retire, because that money is still in that pooled money. So for those employees that do have a longevity time frame here, I would hate to see them jump ship and leave our departments where we have to hire new people in because the county's worried about the cost, which in the long run, training new people is going to cost way more money than just leaving it like it is. And then I have a question about the certifications. Last time I was aware, the only people that got certifications were the sheriff's office. Currently, all my clerks upstairs have to be certified to give passports. That is not something that's a required duty of my office. That is something that we do to bring in more money for Kerr County. I mean, you're talking $20,000, $30,000 a year extra we bring in on the passport services, and now since we've had COVID and that's been down, my employees aren't getting any kind of benefit from that. So I would highly encourage that if there is a certification that brings in more money to this county, you compensate those employees. I have 10 employees that work hard up there. Sometimes we have 40 passports a week we do. And you have to, again, be certified, and it's not that easy to get certified in that. So I would encourage, if you keep that, you look at the other employees that do require that to do their job, or we can eliminate that where the revenue is not coming to the county either. PTO, I agree with that. But my main thing is I want to make sure those employees that have been here a long time, they're compensated, because a lot of them had their hours capped on their sick leave. And those employees don't abuse their sick leave. But there are employees that, because they don't have enough vacation time, they choose to use their sick leave. And whether we find out about it or not, I don't know. But PTO is good, but I would hope that by doing that, that our staff stays up and not everybody's thinking, oh, I have PTO time, I can just go and do whatever I want to do. We still got to keep our office staffed. So, you know, we can't ask questions about medical, I understand that, but we can require a doctor's note after they've been out 3 days. So that kind of helps in that situation as well. But again, PTO is great, but I would hope that we have some kind of policy behind it that can help that, oh, I want to be off Friday, and just call in, hey, I'm taking PTO. Sometimes that doesn't work, you know, when you've got courts going on and no staff to be in the courtroom with whoever's in there. The other thing is longevity. Again, that is something I agree. The more you're paid, the more you're gonna get. And I've always been a person to defend the employees when it comes to pay. Do I think some are underpaid? Absolutely. Do I think this survey did adjust? I do not, because some of the employees that are unpaid or not paid as much still didn't get any type of increase. So, but that's not for me to decide, and I didn't agree with what counties were used as the survey. Again, that's my personal opinion, and I still will come in here and fight for every employee in Kerr County to make sure they get the pay that they deserve. That's just the way I am, that's the way I'm wired, and I'm definitely gonna be up here for my employees to make sure they're not taken for granted and they're paid appropriately as well. So if that means me coming to the podium every year, that's what I'll do.
And we expect nothing less.
So, thank you.
The thing about somebody just calling in and taking a day off is unavoidable. But if you're gonna take more than a certain number of days off, then I don't think you need to serve notice of some sort.
Get some advance
We can have a-
notice.
Yeah, have a policy that if you're gonna take more than 3 days off, because most people, if you're sick, you get sick that day, your child gets sick, you gotta go pick them up from school, whatever, that's a one-day event. If you're sick yourself, it might be as many as 3 days. And if you're gonna take more than 3 days off, I think that your department deserves notice, your supervisor deserves notice.
Right. Or even one, if you know it, you know, hey, I got a doctor's appointment next week.
Sure,
You
yeah,
need to take off
any
Thursday.
of them, but especially, I mean, something can come
Common
up at the
courtesy.
last minute.
Heather, on that point, can you look at with elected officials how much we can mandate that? I mean, I think the elected officials have a lot of discretion as to how they operate their offices, and I think that it's within most elected officials' purview to say,
Yeah.
you know, if you're taking vacation, it's got to be approved when you're going to do it. I don't know if we have authority to tell elected officials how to run their offices to that point. My question, certainly we can tell departments, but I'm interested to see what authority the court has on setting policy on how operations are done in elected officials.
I think
So I don't
none.
think,
I think none too. That's
Yeah.
why I brought it up.
but I don't think you'll find a lot of elected officials or department heads resistant about having a policy for approved
Sure.
leave
Yeah.
in their offices.
But I just want to make sure we can do it.
Well, they have to establish it.
Yeah, that's my
Right.
question is,
Yeah.
who establishes it?
Before we listen to Mr. Reeves, I don't think I misheard. I don't think we're trying to do away with the distinction between PTO and sick time. Sick
No.
leave, right?
No, I'm.
So there's still a lot of discretion with whoever the elected official is or the department head to chase it down as to whether or not that really is sick leave or whether or not that's vacation.
No.
I don't think you need to do that, but if you're going to, let's say I'm gonna take 3 days, a long weekend. And I know it's all PTO, it's all paid time off. I don't have to tell anybody anything except I'm not gonna be there. That's a courtesy that every employee should extend to their supervisor. And I just wanna make sure that that's understood, whether policy or whether.
Sure.
And electeds will have to decide it. Department heads can have a policy that protects them, because you gotta cover for those employees. Even if they're sick for 1 day, or if they're taking 3 days off, or 5, or whatever. It doesn't matter if it's vacation or a sick kid, you still have to cover for that at the office, or whatever department you're in.
So as a supervisor, my employees have to come to me and request vacation time off.
To tell you, to give you notice.
I get it approved,
Yeah,
not
it
just
is
notice,
approved.
but I have
I'd like to take off from the 15th
Sure.
through the 20th.
But like
way it works out.
what Don said, you know, if it's a court day, I can't let all of particular employees off for vacation, even if they all want it real bad. But if they're sick on those days, and my employees will call me and say, I'm sick, or they'll text me, and I'm sick, I can't be there today, and I certainly don't want them there sick. And if it's on a court day, and they're usually not gonna call in just because they want a day off. If it's a court day, they're really gonna, and they're really sick, they're gonna take off because they're sick. Thank you, Jackie.
But when you get sick, nobody plans that.
Right.
So the difference is, and I don't know how long it's gonna last. If I'm sick and throwing up for one day, I don't know if I'm gonna be better tomorrow. So that's the point. If I know I have to take 3 days off to go to softball camp with my kid, I know when that's gonna happen.
And
that's
so it's
different.
just, as supervisor, it's just a matter of when you adjust. So if I have to adjust and plan for that, or if they're calling in sick on a day that they've got something big going on in the office, we just adjust then and move along.
My point is that, I think, yeah, my point is that it should be, I hate for us to try to create a policy.
Right.
I'd rather leave it up to the department heads
I agree.
and supervisors because they know their officers.
They know the people.
Right.
I think you currently have in your policy that sick leave or vacation, or whatever, it's supervisor approval. Okay, and that is a human resources policy that the county can do because it's tied to your benefits. So y'all can set that. Okay, it's just, then it's a.
Okay. We've got Mr. Reeves at the podium. You have the floor.
Well, thinking what you've added to that, Commissioner, on time off, I think splitting the two between quote vacation and sick leave could lead to a lot more Friday taking off at the last minute than the current sick leave policy. I can budget for requested time off. Sick leave, you can't budget for, but you deal with. But if you don't have to, if you decided, hey, the bass are running in Flat Rock Lake, you call in, no excuse. I'm going to take the PTO day today. Can we ask them if they're sick now? That's something I'm going to need from legal to say, no, you can't go fishing. So I think that needs to be clarified. I know everybody is looking for the best interest for the employees. I think we need to look at the ones with the experience, the years. If you've built up an accrued time of 720 hours of sick leave, you don't abuse it. Please don't take that away from them in whatever you do. Because I have one employee had a mate take time off after the said employee was kicked by a horse. That's how loyal that. I have other employees that will not abuse their sick leave. These are the ones that have been there more than 8.9 years, or however you explained it, Commissioner. The other ones will always have 6 hours banked. We can't deal with that. But don't take it away from our experienced employees. They've been loyal to Kerr County, and please continue to take care of them. Employees are not easy to replace right now. Drive up Sidney Baker, count the help wanted signs. The team we have countywide has come because of the benefits, what we offer. Sheriff Hirholzer is correct. Ms. Lance is correct. The benefits are what bring these employees. I have employees that left the private sector and took substantial pay cuts, but for the benefits made up for it. Yes, it is a cost, but please look at that. Look at our longevity. And to be honest, when we changed it the last time, I voted for the latest change when I was sitting up there. After I got on this side and I see I've got employees that will never see another pay increase with the exception of cost of living or whatever the terminology it's going to be. I realize the error in that. But they stay. And they will continue to stay if we take care of them. But to go in, I understand the budget process, but truthfully, I'm glad the court has taken the time to see really what are we talking about. If it's 8.9 years, we know a vast majority of the ones that come to the county are less than 8 years because you go by averages. But we pride ourselves on good roads, we pride ourselves on good law enforcement. It's because of the years of experience we have in those. We pride ourselves on a good election. That's not me. It's the years we have, and I beg you not to take that away from the employees. Thank you.
A couple of comments I want to go. One, go back to Ms. Don's comment. Road and Bridge has had certification bumps as long as the sheriff has. So there are more than one department, and we have recently received requests from other departments for that. That's why I think it needs to be uniform throughout the county and as part of your job descriptions, and you change your job description if the certification is part of the job.
And I know that was for pesticide, I understand that, so.
And, yeah. But,
no one else has been allowed to do that except here recently, then, because.
well, then no one's doing it, but they have asked, and it's fair. Just trying to be fair. On the sick leave, maybe I failed to mention that nobody would lose the accrued sick time they have. That's in the recommendation, and it would actually be enhanced because it would. He could, going forward, you could put the same 720 hours under FMLA, which is going to basically handle any, extended sick time anyone has out. So basically, we're improving the sick time with the PTO.
Would that be a side-by-side 720? So you have 720 of sick here that you can accrue, and then above that 720, it's a separate FMLA. Wow, up to 720 FMLA.
Right, but it's FMLA, but that will start going now. So as your sick time is going to go down, FMLA.
If the sick time over here stays at 720, though, the FMLA could grow to 720 also for combined.
Yeah, but those are not
14,
payable. Neither one of those are payable when I'm leaving.
But it could be banked for.
Right.
I mean, that's a huge insurance policy for.
Yeah.
Okay.
But FMLA kicks in after a certain. There's a threshold.
It primarily, I will defer to. It's primarily a doctor.
But if you have extended care issues with a loved one or yourself, or you mommies that have had babies, staying home.
Parents or
so it's that kind of stuff.
Or cancer or kicked by a horse.
But it starts, something triggers it. You don't turn it in as FMLA from the beginning.
If you're out for more than 3 days and you see that it's going to be extended or intermittent, that you're going to need intermittent time,
right.
Get a doctor's note.
And obviously for something like having a baby and staying home for a little while, we know that's going to be a while. Right. Other things are less predictable.
And FMLA really, it protects your job.
Yeah,
so it's not like, it's not guarantees the pay, but it protects your job. But so what the sick leave does, if you have this bank, you get that paid time. So if you haven't had that bank and you might have to, and you don't have some long-term disability or short-term disability, or you go out without pay. But if you are a long-time employee who've got the 720 hours and your job's protected, but also so your paycheck.
So you'd have a choice of what to use? Is that what you're talking about?
No. I'm just trying to educate about what FMLA really is, and it's protecting your job.
Protecting your
certain
job,
events.
right.
And just to go over, while going into this, I had some ideas of things, some benefits need to be reduced. Coming out of it, the recommendation overall is expanding benefits, and pretty substantial expansion. So, I think that at least one commissioner is going to expanding our current benefit package, which is very good, and we'll see where that goes. I mean, there are budget implications that we certainly have to look at, but the idea is certainly for the current employees and for really retirees, it's no cuts. It's really expansion.
And no change in longevity either.
No.
We're just gonna call it something different.
On that topic of calling it something different, I looked at this. That was really eye-opening to hear that 8.9 years is the average. So folks that are, you know, if that's the average, we've got people that are leaving at 1, 2, 3 years. That's got to bring that down because we've got people that have been here for 30 years. I know that I was concerned a couple of years ago when we did drop back to, I think it's after 18 years, there's no more, what we're calling longevity is that 2.5% every 3 years. Really, it's a market adjustment is what it is. And I'm going to call it that from the rest of this point forward, just me, just to keep it separate because we talked about expanding, keeping the market adjustment, which is working, I'm hearing. That when we did our salary survey, we were very pleasantly surprised to see that we're in the market range that we should be with what people are being paid, and it's because we've been doing that 2.5% every 3 years. Now, was it 2 years ago that we quit doing that and we dropped it to just after year 18 you can't get it anymore?
It's after 20 years.
It's after 20. Okay, I had the wrong. So if you've been here for 19 years, you won't get it anymore. How long were we doing it before we dropped it back? Was there no end? Or was it 25 years? Or
There was no end of it.
There was a cutoff,
It's been 20.
It's always.
but it was somewhere around
Just
20?
never was in writing.
Oh, okay. Well, if we were to expand anything, I would vote to expand that to maybe year 25. That would be 2 more. Keep some really good people a little bit longer. The other thing, so we've got the market adjustment, and it sounds like we're going to keep it, and that's wonderful. The annual longevity being paid out per month, I've experienced that before, and that's a really nice. It's not a whole lot of money, but I tell you what, it usually comes at the right time of the year, and that's a really nice incentive for people. Really, if you're going to expand and do that, I'm all for it. Jump all over that. The vacation and the PTO, I kind of had some mixed feelings, but as I thought about it, one of the concerns I have had in coming here is that our vacation time, you got to work here for 10 years before you can accrue more than 2 weeks of vacation a year. That's rough. And you got some folks that you're bringing over that they're leaving a place where they're earning a lot more than that, and they've got family, and now they don't have time to take their kid to college and drop them off at college because they only have 2 weeks, and they got to save some for Christmas, they got to save some for Thanksgiving. So to expand that to the PTO, I am all for that. That's a wonderful expansion. I think it's very wise, and I think it's very generous. Our retirement at 2.3 to 1. I think the former sheriff said it really, really well. He said, the other folks they're getting the pay up front, and so if they're at 1.9 or 2.0 match to the 2 to 1 match or the 1.9 to 1 match, they're getting money. They're getting more money today, so it kind of balances out. And if we're doing a 2.3 to 1, and we maybe don't pay quite as well, that's fine. That's a decision that people like me made to come here. That's one of the reasons I came. 2.3 to 1. That's outstanding. Boy, let's keep that going. That's a nice carrot to dangle in front, and it will help. And if we're at an average of 8.9 years for people, well then it works. And if, as Don says, if there's some folks that decide to retire early and they take their portion that they put in, the 1, to your 2.3, and they don't satisfy the terms of the retirement, guess what? Your 2.3 stays. It doesn't go with the person that just took their 1. And people make that decision all the time. And I think it's crazy that they're doing it, but I hope they keep doing it because I want to stay for the long haul. And for the folks that want to stay for the long haul, that we feel like we're making a difference here and we enjoy working here, that's a really good incentive to keep it at 2.3 to 1. And certification policy, what do you got? A handful of people that are getting paid certification pay, but it causes, I think, some issues. I see it every year since I've been here for 7 years, and that, hey, I want certification for my person. I like the idea of putting it in the job description. If this is a part of the thing that you do and you need this and it's something extra and special, I tell you, I got a pesticide license. I don't get certification pay for it. I got it for a different reason. And that's because the department that I work with and closely with, that was the only reason, was to be part of the team. But I don't want to get paid more for it, but the people that are doing it, that's a big deal. It really is. Handling herbicides and pesticides is very dangerous. To me, if you were going to have a certification policy, that's definitely something that you would pay for, but I get it. I see other certifications for other departments. Just make it part of the job description and take that argument off of the table. It comes up every year. So I say put it in the job description and pay them more. Thank you very much. I like everything that I heard today. It's heading in the right direction.
Good comment.
Thanks for your input.
Make a quick comment on the two things, quick.
Quick.
Real quick.
On the
Real
certification, I agree, it's not fair, okay? I've always said that, because the normal peace officer, to become a master peace officer and get that high end of the certification, you're talking 20 years. That's what it takes for TCO gives him that, unless he's got a PhD or a master's degree in college or something. It's going to take him 20. It took me 20 years to get it, right, for myself, because I had no college. It's a lot more than a 2-week course to get it. So I agree, it's not fair. So I don't know how y'all look at that. I think the Deputy 1, Deputy 2, 3 may be the best way to do it. I know DPS used to do it as Trooper 1 through Trooper 5, okay? And that's how they did it, to give them more because of their experience. And that may be the best way to look at it. I think it needs to happen. There needs to be some type of pay increase for those people that have either stayed that long or gotten that special certification or something, but how you do it probably does need to be looked at. The last thing on the retirement match is, as I know right now, especially the last year, once you retire, you don't get any more longevity, you don't get any more COLAs, you don't get any more, any of that kind of, very little COLA if you get it. I don't know if the county is giving retirees a COLA and how much it's been. It was .something% last time, not even 1, I don't think. But, so that original contribution that y'all made is what made my retirement what it is. And I would hate to see that get cut, because that's where the retiree gets a benefit. And if a retiree I spent my entire adult life with this county. Okay? And so I think, yeah, I deserve that. And I think every retiree that gets to that point where they actually get it, they gave this county enough that they deserve that. If they don't stay, they're not going to get it, because they're not going to get that match. Okay? They're going to pull it out. So those that stayed and put in the time with this county, I think they deserve it. Thank you.
I think the sheriff just brought up something that I had to write down now. Not all departments are created equal. And that really, I mean,
That is.
it's true, and I think we all, as department heads, have to respect that. We're just not. We're not, and it's really hard to compare apples and oranges and lemons and tangerines. There's no comparison. We got to be careful of that.
Well, if the certifications mean anything, they should not be disincentivized. They should be incentivized if they really amount to.
Well, they are incentivized for a different job description. I mean,
Right.
different
Right.
position.
I'm just saying that what we do now is good and valid. If the certification amounts to somebody being a better employee, a better what they do, then it should be incentivized.
Yeah, it needs to be incentivized, I agree, but the way we're currently doing it is not equitable, because
That's the
Dawn
problem.
has people that have certifications, the treasurer has people that have different certifications, Bob has different people with different certifications. They're not getting it really, it's just, and I think it needs to be, you need to account for it in job descriptions
Precisely.
and handle it that way.
And not every person has to have that certification.
Right.
But there's an aspect of the job that needs to get done by somebody, and whoever holds that certification is the one that tag you're it. And if they worked really hard to get that certification, if it's difficult to get, they're thinking, I'd like to be compensated somehow for it. Otherwise, why would I do it?
Right.
Would anybody else like to address the court? Do we have any other discussions or questions?
Well, Judge, I think that moving forward, from what I've heard, the vacation PTO part and the certification change, and then or something that we could probably put on an agenda to adopt and incorporate into the budget planning process and get policies done and job descriptions redone as needed.
And what about the retirement supplement insurance?
That's good.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody say, I mean, the truth of the matter is, you get it cheaper if you get it on your own.
Right. Well, yes. The issue with that, only issue with that, that's part of our insurance bidding package. So, I mean, I don't know if we need to take action on that until we get our insurance quotes. Because that's what will make that change.
But in terms of
Right.
us
Right.
and our employees,
We're good.
I want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
And just so you know, there was a webinar on TAC gave that they already have our insurance quotes out there, what it's gonna be. So overall, the whole pool's taken a 7.3% on medical, and dental's gonna be 3.6. So what that means is we can be above it or we can be below it, but that's the range that they had this webinar.
Right.
And for everybody to see.
Yeah. But until we get our actual quotes, and then we
Right,
can look
and
at
that's what I'm saying,
Right.
and that's part of it, so.
If we drop that, is that why the insurance company's offering it and giving us a sweeter deal here because they're overcharging on that? Is there gonna be an unintended consequence if you drop that where this comes back up and you're paying the same?
Probably not, but that's why we need to wait till the quotes come in, and then we can ask them to run various scenarios to go to, instead of the Cadillac plan that we currently have, which is costing a lot, go with a bare minimum plan, and then look what it does to our other rates. That way we can.
When they give us the rates, they give us 3 packages to
Right.
choose from, and so we have better options.
But then on the longevity, or the, what do you call it, Charlie, the market adjustment?
Market adjustment.
The market adjustment plan and the possible new longevity plan, that needs to come back and discuss that a little bit more, probably get some information out on some various scenarios. I don't see it changing the longevity plan, or the market plan, right? But on a new longevity policy, we need to really look at the cost of that. That's kind of come back on that. And then on the, retirement contribution, I think we need to have TCDRS to look at that liability, see what it is, and then that comes back at some point. But everything I'm hearing today is that the employees don't want us to change the 2.3%.
Right.
Any other discussion from any quarter?
Judges, to me, it's a really good exercise for us to go through this, and I really do want to thank Tanya, Jennifer, and Heather for a lot of hours spent going through this, and looking at a lot of different scenarios. Yeah, this is what we ended up with.
I encourage y'all to meet with Tanya because she has some handy dandy charts that have some really good information to help you understand where we are and what the possible options are outside of this one page you've gotten today. She can help talk you through all of that, and it'll get you an understanding of what we do provide and what the considerations were for those changes and the effect on the county and the employees. It was very helpful and insightful.
I know in talking to several of y'all that, your people were very skeptical about all this and everything. Hopefully y'all feel better and can calm a lot of those fears and what have you.
Yes.
Anyone that wants, here's some of the overview sheet that the court has, and if anyone wants to take
Those
it,
are extra
take some
copies.
Extra copies. Kind of as a summary sheet.
Take them all.
Market adjustment,
Yeah.
Before we adjourn, I want to thank everyone, especially Jennifer and Tanya and Heather for their work on this. We have a family saying in my family, when in doubt, check it out. And so we're trying to check it out. And it never hurts to sit down and talk about these things and find out where everybody is. I appreciate everyone's participation and input. And some of you spoke and some of you nodded your heads. Not lost on me. I paid attention. I think it's been very productive. But that will conclude our workshop, and we are adjourned.